Imagine walking into a town where every door is locked, every street silent, and yet it feels like someone is watching. We often pass through busy places without noticing their history. But what if the walls could speak? What if they told us about families who left in a hurry, laughter that turned into whispers, or lives frozen in time? These forgotten UK towns are not just ruins, they carry memories, fears, and untold secrets. Tonight, we step into their silence, and maybe their shadows. If you love exploring haunted and forgotten places, make sure to subscribe and join me on this chilling journey. 1. Imber, Wiltshire. On the wide and empty Salisbury Plain, there is a village that seems frozen in time. Its name is Imber, and today, it feels less like a village and more like a ghostly memory. Broken houses stand silently, windows shattered, and doors locked forever. Walking here feels as if life suddenly stopped one day and never returned. But the truth behind Imber is not just about abandoned buildings, it's about people, emotions, and the pain of being forced to leave their homes. In December 1943, during World War II, the British Army came to the villagers of Imber with urgent news. The land was needed for military training. Families were told to pack their belongings and leave within days. Most people thought it was temporary. They believed one day, after the war, they would return to their homes, farms, and church. Imagine the heartbreak. Christmas was near, and families were preparing for holidays. Instead, they had to leave behind the houses they built with their own hands. Some villagers even left half-cooked meals on the table, never to return. Parents carried children in tears, while elderly people looked back one last time at the place they had spent their entire lives. The promise was clear. Once the war was over, Imber would be returned to its people. But that promise was broken. Decades passed, and the doors of Imber never opened again for its former residents. Many of them died, still hoping they would see their village once more. Today, only a few buildings remain standing: stone cottages, empty shells, and the old St. Giles Church. Once a year, people are allowed to visit, and it becomes an emotional gathering. Families of those who once lived here walk through the silent streets, placing flowers by the church, whispering stories of the past. Some say they feel a strange energy, as if the spirits of those who loved this place still wander here, waiting. Visitors often describe an unsettling silence in Imber. Even the wind seems heavy. Some soldiers who trained here claim to hear distant voices at night, children laughing, or a woman calling someone home. Paranormal researchers believe the grief left behind has turned the entire village into a haunted ground. But perhaps the real haunting is not of ghosts, but of broken promises. Imber is more than an abandoned place. It is a wound that never healed. A reminder of how quickly life can change. A place where time truly stopped forever. 2. Hidden between the hills of Dorset lies a village that once echoed with laughter, school bells, and the sound of church hymns. That village is Tyneham, a place frozen in silence since the winter of 1943. Like Imber, Tyneham's story is deeply human. Families lived here for centuries: fishermen, farmers, and teachers. Children went to the small village school, where lessons were written on chalkboards, and the church bell rang every Sunday morning. It was a peaceful life, far away from the chaos of the world. But in December 1943, everything changed. The British Army arrived with a notice. The land was needed for military training to prepare for the D-Day landings. Families were asked to leave immediately, told that they could return once the war was over. Just before Christmas, people gathered their belongings, locked their doors, and walked away, never realizing they were leaving forever. The most heartbreaking part of Tyneham's story is found in the schoolhouse. On the blackboard, a final message was left behind. "Please treat the school and village kindly." Written by a young child, those words still remain today, like an echo of innocence that never returned. Imagine the emotions of those who left. A mother carrying her baby, wondering if her child would ever see their birthplace again. Elderly villagers looking back at the cottages where generations of their families had lived. Neighbors saying goodbye to each other with tears, believing it was only temporary. But the promise was never kept. The war ended, yet Tyneham was never given back. Decades passed, roofs collapsed, and ivy grew over walls. The school remains, but without children. The church remains, but without prayers. Today, visitors describe Tyneham as both beautiful and heartbreaking. Walking through its empty streets feels like stepping into a memory. The silence is so heavy that even footsteps sound too loud. Some people claim they feel watched here, as if the souls of those who once lived in Tyneham still linger, waiting for the day their village is returned. There are even whispers of paranormal activity. Some say they hear faint laughter of children inside the schoolhouse, or a woman's voice calling out a name near the abandoned cottages. Whether these are ghosts or simply the weight of lost memories, no one can say for sure. Tyneham is not just an abandoned place, it is a story of broken promises and stolen homes. A reminder of how war does not only destroy battlefields, but also quiet villages filled with ordinary lives. To stand in Tyneham today is to feel both sadness and awe, for it is a village that still breathes, not through its people, but through their memories. 3. Twymorthen, Snowdonia, Wales. High in the mountains of Snowdonia, Wales, lies a lonely valley called Twymorthen. Surrounded by mist, lakes, and steep cliffs, it hides a dark and tragic past that still echoes in the silence of the hills. In the 19th century, this valley was alive with activity. Twymorthen's slate quarry was one of the busiest in Wales. Hundreds of men and boys worked here, carving slate from the mountains to roof homes across Britain. Families built cottages in the valley, and a small community grew around the quarry. It should have been a place of life and progress, but instead, it became a place of sorrow. The work was dangerous, and death was common. Accidents, falling rocks, explosions. Many men never returned home. Some families lost fathers, brothers, and even young sons, all within a single generation. Locals soon gave the quarry a chilling nickname: the Slaughterhouse. The Slaughterhouse. Imagine the fear of those who worked there. Every morning, men would kiss their wives goodbye, never knowing if they would come back. Mothers waited by the door, children played in the valley, listening for the sound of footsteps that sometimes never arrived. Life in Twymorthen was always lived under the shadow of death. When the quarry finally closed, the community scattered. The cottages crumbled, the chapel fell silent, and the valley grew empty once more. Yet, many say the spirits of those lost miners never left. Visitors to Twymorthen report hearing the sound of picks striking rock deep underground, long after the mine shut down. Some claim to hear men's voices, calling out in Welsh, echoing through the dark tunnels. There are even stories of ghostly figures. People walking the mountain paths have seen shadowy miners carrying lanterns, moving silently across the valley before disappearing into the mist. Hikers often describe a heavy sadness here, as if the land itself remembers the suffering of those who lived and died within it. One of the most unsettling tales comes from inside the abandoned quarry tunnels. Some explorers report feeling a sudden drop in temperature, followed by the sound of breathing right beside them, yet no one is there. A few have even turned back, convinced they were not alone in the darkness. Twymorthen today is breathtaking in its beauty: blue lakes reflecting the sky, sheep grazing on the hills, and ruins of stone buildings standing like broken teeth in the grass. But beneath this beauty lies a story carved in blood and sweat. It is a valley haunted not just by ghosts, but by the weight of human sacrifice. To walk through Twymorthen is to feel both awe and sorrow. It is a reminder that behind every stone wall and ruined cottage lies a family's history, and behind every silent tunnel lies the echo of men who gave their lives to the mountain. 4. Stanford Villages, Norfolk. In the heart of Norfolk, hidden behind high fences and warning signs, lies the village of Stanford. Once a quiet farming community, today it is known as one of Britain's most mysterious ghost villages. Its story is not only about history, but also about the deep human pain of losing a home forever. For centuries, families lived in Stanford. The land was green and fertile. Cottages stood along narrow lanes, and the village church echoed with weddings, baptisms, and Sunday prayers. Life here was peaceful until World War II changed everything. In 1942, the government made a decision that would alter Stanford's fate forever. The War Office needed land to train soldiers, and the people of Stanford were told they had to leave. Families were given just weeks to pack their belongings and abandon the homes where generations had lived. Imagine the heartbreak. Farmers farmers who had tilled the same soil for hundreds of years were forced to walk away from their fields. Children left behind toys, gardens, and the sound of school bells. Elderly villagers wept as they locked their doors for the last time, never to return. They were promised that after the war, they could come back, but that promise was never kept. The army took over, and Stanford became part of the Stanford Training Area, Stanta. Soldiers used the village for battle practice, and soon, the cottages and streets that once rang with laughter echoed instead with gunfire and explosions. The heart of the community was silenced, yet locals say something still lingers in Stanford. Visitors who have stood outside the fenced-off village report strange feelings, as if dozens of unseen eyes are watching them from the shadows of ruined houses. Some claim to hear the faint tolling of a church bell, even though the church has long been closed to worshippers. The most chilling stories are about ghostly figures. Soldiers training in the area have spoken of seeing women in old-fashioned dresses, walking across empty fields, or hearing children's laughter carried by the wind. A few even reported a sudden smell of wood smoke, as if fires were burning in cottages that no longer have residents. Families. Today, the village remains locked away from the public, preserved in time but haunted by memories. Crumbling houses, boarded windows, and overgrown gardens stand as a silent reminder of a community that was forced to vanish. Stanford is not haunted only by ghosts, it is haunted by loss. The sorrow of families who were torn from their homes, and the broken promise of return, and the silence of a village that once was full of life. And to stand near Stanford is to feel both anger and sadness. It is a place where history and humanity collide. Where the land remembers the pain of those who had no choice but to leave behind everything they loved. 5. In Pluckley, Kent. In the quiet countryside of Kent lies the village of Pluckley. At first glance, it looks charming. Old cottages, and winding lanes and fields stretching into the distance. But behind this peaceful beauty is a darker truth. As Pluckley is often called the most haunted village in England. For centuries, people here have spoken of ghosts, not just one or two, but dozens of restless spirits who are said to wander its streets, fields, and even homes. Each ghost carries a story, some tragic, some mysterious, but all of them tied to the village's long past. One of the most famous legends is that of the watercress woman. She was once a poor old lady who made her living by gathering watercress near a stream. But her life ended in sadness when she accidentally set herself on fire with her pipe. To this day, villagers claim to see her ghostly figure glowing in the darkness near the bridge, her spirit wandering the place where she died. And then there is the tale of the screaming man. Centuries ago, a bricklayer died in a tragic accident when the walls of a clay pit collapsed on him. Our locals say his cries of agony were so haunting that even after his death, the echo of his screams lingered. Many visitors to Pluckley still report hearing a terrifying wail coming from the fields, especially on cold, foggy nights. Perhaps the most heartbreaking story is that of the Red Lady of St. Nicholas Church. She is believed to be the ghost of a woman buried inside the churchyard. Some say she was searching for her lost child. Others believe she was a noble woman left broken by grief. Her figure, dressed in red, is said to wander the graves at night. And carrying a single red rose, people who have seen her describe a heavy sadness in the air, as if her grief is still alive. But Pluckley is not only about ghostly figures, it is about the people who live there now, carrying the weight of these stories. Imagine walking home in the evening, knowing that every corner of your village holds a chilling legend. Some villagers admit they feel a strange connection to the past, as though the spirits are still part of the community. Others live in quiet fear, never stepping out after dark. Despite this, Pluckley has become a place of curiosity. Ghost hunters, tourists, and TV crews arrive, hoping to witness something paranormal. Yet for locals, the hauntings are not entertainment. They are part of their history, tied deeply to family memories and village identity. To walk through Pluckley at night is to step into another world. The silence feels heavy, the shadows seem longer, and every gust of wind feels like a whisper from the past. It is a village where beauty and terror live side by side, and where the line between the living and the dead is never clear.